Krishna 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 Hare Krishna 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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
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 Om Surabhyaya Namaha
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 Mukham karoti vasalam pangum langayate girim Yat kripat maham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam Yat kripat maham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Welcome to our Srimad Bhagavatam class. Reading from Canto number 1, chapter 2, entitled Divinity and Divine Service. And today we are doing text number 10. Is it? 10, 1, 0. Kamasya
Kamasya
Nindriya
Indriya
Pritir
Priti
Labho
Labho
Jiveta
Jiveta
Yavata
Yavata
Jivasya
Jivasya
Tattva
Tattva
Jignasha
Jignasa
Nartho
Nartho
Yash
Yes
Cheha
Sheva
Karmabhihi
Karmabhihi
Kamasya Nindriya Pritir
Kamasya Indriya Priti
Labho Jiveta Yavata
Labho Jiveta Yavata
Jivasya Tattva Jignasha
Jivasya Tattva Jignasa
Nartho Yascheha Karmabhihi
Nartho Yascheha Karmabhihi
Kamasya Nindriya Pritir
Kamasya Indriya Priti
Labho Jiveta Yavata
Labho Jiveta Yavata
Jivasya Tattva Jignasa
Jivasya Tattva Jignasa
Nartho Yascheha Karmabhihi
Nartho Yascheha Karmabhihi
Kamasya Nindriya Pritir
Kamasya Indriya Priti
Labho Jiveta Yavata
Labho Jiveta Yavata
Jivasya Tattva Jignasa
Jivasya Tattva Jignasa
Nartho Yascheha Karmabhihi
Nartho Yascheha Karmabhihi
Kamasya
Kamasya
of desires
of desires
Na
Na
not Indriya
Indriya
senses
senses
Priti
Priti
satisfaction
satisfaction
Labha
Labha
gain
gain
Jiveta
Jiveta
self-preservation
self-preservation
Yavata
Yavata
so much so
much so
Jivasya
Jivasya
of the living being
of the living being
Tattva
Tattva
the absolute truth
the absolute truth
Jignasa
Jignasa
inquiries Na not Artha
Artha
end Yaha cha iha
Yah cha iha
whatsoever else
whatsoever else
Karmabhihi by
Karmabhihi
occupational activities.
by occupational activities.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Swami Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Life's desires should never be directed toward sense gratification. One should desire only A healthy life, or self-preservation, since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's works. Kindly repeat after me. Life's desires should never be directed toward sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life, or self-preservation, since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's works. Purport. The completely bewildered material civilization is wrongly directed towards the fulfillment of desires in sense gratification. In such civilization, in all spheres of life, the ultimate end is sense gratification. In politics, social service, altruism, philanthropy, and ultimately in religion, or even in salvation. The very same tint of sense gratification is ever increasingly predominant. In the political field, the leaders of men fight with one another to fulfill their personal sense gratification. The voters adore the so-called leaders only when they promise sense gratification. As soon as the voters are dissatisfied in their own sense satisfaction, they dethrone the leaders. The leaders must always disappoint the voters by not satisfying their senses. The same is applicable in all other fields. No one is serious about the problems of life. Even those who are on the path of salvation desire to become one with the absolute truth and desire to commit spiritual suicide for sense gratification. But the Bhagavatam says that one should not live for sense gratification, but one should satisfy the senses only as much as required for self-preservation and not for sense gratification. Because the body is made of senses which also require a certain amount of satisfaction, there are regulative directions for satisfaction of such senses. But the senses are not meant for unrestricted enjoyment. For example, a marriage or the combination of a man with a woman is necessary for progeny, but it is not meant for sense enjoyment. In the absence of voluntary restraint, there is propaganda for family planning, but foolish men do not know that family planning is automatically executed as soon as there is search after the absolute truth. Seekers of the absolute truth are never allured by unnecessary engagements in sense gratification, because the serious students seeking the absolute truth are always overwhelmed with the work of researching the truth. In every sphere of life, therefore, the ultimate end must be seeking after the absolute truth. And that sort of engagement will make one happy, because he will be less engaged in varieties of sense gratification. And what that absolute truth is explained as follows. Same thing yesterday at the end. And the rest will be revealed tomorrow in the next verse. Translation again here. Life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation, since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's works. Also very often quoted by Srila Prabhupada, Jivasya Tattva Jignasa, very similar to the first aphorism of the Vedanta Sutra, Tato Brahma Jigyasa. Now that we have acquired this human form of life, now is the time to inquire about the absolute truth. And therefore we can understand, Prabhupada is pointing this out as well in the purport, in the very first line, when a society such as modern day society fixes or establishes as the primary goal of life ever increasing sense gratification, then no one can actually become satisfied in this way. Therefore, it is a very well-known verse also. How does it begin? Bhakti Mukti Siddhi Kami. Yes. All these three levels, the majority of people are situated in either gross sense gratification, satisfaction of the senses, or subtle sense gratification, which is the path of the jnanis, mukti. They are at most endeavoring for moksha or liberation, or even more subtle, the yogis. Therefore, bhakti mukti siddhi. Yogis are after attaining different siddhas or perfections. But it is all either gross or subtle activities of sense gratification. Bhakti mukti siddhi kami. And the result, sakale ashanta. They cannot be happy. Whereas Krishna bhakta niskama ataiva shanta. A devotee is from the very, as soon as one comes in contact with this knowledge of Krishna consciousness, one comes to know. Just like I remember meeting one devotee from Europe that was in Canada. Canada is a place where Canada and the US is called a melting pot. Melting pot. People from all different countries, they come similar with Canada. And she was mentioning how she came to Krishna consciousness. And then she was telling that until I met a devotee, I didn't know that what I was doing was wrong. Yeah, most people actually who are engaged in activities of sense gratification, until it's explained to them, they think it's quite natural, you know. So, and such persons as well, we all have had that experience, cannot become satisfied. Rather, one remains on the bodily platform, on the mental platform, and the vast majority of people actually, for a Vaishnava, that is the sad state of affairs. The vast majority in the world, vast majority of people in the world, their whole life until they leave this body, they never come to understand this basic knowledge, which is given in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So we learn as soon as we come in contact with this philosophy that there is such a thing as happiness, but that happiness is not to be found on the gross or subtle material platform. I remember one time when visiting in preaching activities, I was in Bengal. Every year, one of our, he was like a life member, he would travel. Bengal is quite far to Vrindavan. He would travel all the way to Vrindavan. He was a businessman, but very devoted, and because they had some special katha in Vrindavan, he would travel just for that purpose. To associate with sadhus and to hear about transcendental subject matters. And we cannot begin to understand, nor can we begin to relish or to enjoy these transcendental subject matters if we remain engaged in activities of sense gratification. So in other words, the more we practice, in the beginning we have to practice, that is the meaning of sadhana. Sadhana means we have to force ourselves, isn't it? Because of our strong addiction to activities of sense gratification, when we come in contact with this knowledge, we have to begin regulating our lives, minimizing, avoiding circumstances that will agitate the mind and agitate the senses. And of course, one of the important ways to do that is to be or to live in the association of devotees, isn't it? To be surrounded and therefore to be protected. When we are with devotees means those who are actually, there's different kinds of devotees, of course. There are some devotees who are not so serious, and therefore their association should be we should be cautious. This is an important instruction given by Srila Rupa Goswami. that even amongst devotees we should choose, we should carefully choose our association. We should seek out that association of those devotees who are very serious, those devotees who are very much absorbed in activities of devotional service, and especially who are demonstrating that by being very active in assisting in the preaching mission, in the current ongoing preaching mission, just like all of us are connected with the Krishna consciousness movement. Srila Prabhupada's various activities and projects and instructions how to spread Krishna consciousness. One time Srila Prabhupada actually explained how, because that question comes again and again, how to control our mind. So Prabhupada was explaining the best way to control the mind is to absorb the mind in the preaching mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is to absorb the mind in the preaching mission of our founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada. But we cannot do that unless we know or understand what is that preaching mission. And all of us, at different levels, in different ways, we have our place. We have a place where we can take up different kinds of activities that will keep us away from the natural allurements of modern day society. Or as Prabhupada would explain, if we are not busy for Krishna, if we're not busy serving Krishna, then Maya will come and engage us. You don't have anything to do? Come. I'll engage you. Because by nature we have to be engaged, we have to do something. So therefore, the importance of connecting in a very serious manner with the ongoing present mission that Srila Prabhupada actually has given to all of us. And if we do that, then we will have less time to no time for other activities, isn't it? And the whole idea is that the more we learn to regulate our lives, that's why we have from early morning all of these different programs or activities. That's why Vedic culture is arranged in such a way that people rise early in the morning. Rising early in the morning is a very important activity for those who are seriously practicing Krishna consciousness. And from the very beginning, Prabhupada, I'm sure everyone has heard, always encouraging devotees to be engaged from morning till, from the time we rise till the moment that we take rest. Or Prabhupada would go beyond that, he would say 24 hours a day. I mean, we have a hard time being engaged during our conscious state, you know. But those who are very serious about applying the process, they become absorbed 24 hours a day in serving Krishna. When we do in this way, then we begin to derive a kind of satisfaction in performing those activities. In the beginning it may not be there, generally will not be there, at least it will not be there consistently. So therefore we are reminded, of course, again and again, as this verse is explaining, that that's why Prabhupada would, when he would comment on modern day civilization, Prabhupada would say, this is not civilization. Not at all civilization. Or he would give different terms, like this is a killing civilization, which is of course very true. A killing civilization in different ways, killing the natural, we could say, instinct, or the natural tendency, or the natural ability that we all have as eternal spirit souls, not giving opportunity for people. That's the foremost duty and responsibility of leaders within society. Keeping people is in ignorance is going against what leaders in society should actually be doing. Leaders, responsible leaders make all kinds of arrangements for their dependents, for the citizens, to actually make progress and advancement. Means we have, of course, a very challenging situation in modern day society where unless one becomes very, very determined and takes various steps to protect oneself from the otherwise all-pervading and very strong influence of the material energy, of the modes of material nature, then practically it is impossible. Even we see, even amongst, or even with the association of devotees, it's also difficult. It is difficult, but actually when we don't take that association of devotees, then it becomes actually impossible. So, which one is better? Difficult or impossible? It's impossible to succeed without the association of devotees. It's impossible to be happy without the process of devotional service. It's impossible to make advancement without being regulated. And we have been unregulated for so many lifetimes. We're still hanging around in the material world due to our not, in previous lives, when the opportunity was given to us, not taking that opportunity, not taking the process seriously. This instruction here, of course, is very directly connected with what Krishna speaks about, of course, in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, wherein at the end of the chapter he summarizes how people who are engaged in activities of gross sense gratification, means the karmis, and those who are engaged in more subtle activities of sense gratification, the jnanis, and those who still maintain a sense of proprietorship, who are trying to accumulate different things, and also those who are on the platform of the false ego, which means the bodily platform, either gross or subtle. They can never be happy. They can never be successful. This is what distinguishes someone who has come in contact with this knowledge, who is cultivating this knowledge, and who is endeavoring on a daily basis to apply that knowledge, from those who are simply completely covered by Maya, and who are simply by their each and every activity increasing and prolonging their suffering in the material world. So as Prabhupada would explain, this understanding and this becoming relieved from, we just have to look back a few years before we all actually came in contact with Krishna consciousness. It was impossible to have or to develop a state of peacefulness, or a state, where we don't have any kind of anxiety. But it becomes possible according to how we take these instructions and how we apply these instructions that are being given here. Of course, in Krishna consciousness, we're not advocating that people not be happy, rather we're advocating that people come to the true platform of happiness, which is transcendental, which is of a different nature. And this is open, or can actually become realized, can be experienced within a very short period of time as well. It doesn't have to take many lifetimes. It doesn't have to take many, many years. It is very much based on one's individual, personal decision or determination to actually surrender. It's a question of surrender. We'll read this verse again here. Life's desires should never be directed toward sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation, since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's life. Any thoughts?
Good morning.
Yes.
So you were explaining about the natural instincts.
The natural instinct.
Yes. So in modern civilization, were people were not allowing people to, their dependents to even work as per their natural instincts. You were mentioning
in modern.
in modern setup, even education, anything.
Right.
That is not allowing people to work as per their their natural instincts.
Yes.
So even in devotional service, generally when we train the students and all, so yes, you are mentioning that there should be a kind of one should force oneself, or initially one should force oneself to advance. Yeah. So naturally, if we see any students or any devotees who are coming, so neither they want to come for morning program, nor the tendency is to be little cozy or lazy. But at the same time, when we push them, but how long can we push? That is also one question which comes, because naturally, if it comes, it is very good, and if they understand over 1 or 2 years, it is very good. But year on year, if we are pushing, so it becomes very tough from our side also, that why I should force somebody. At the same time, we were kept in a managerial role or a leadership role, wherein you have to guide them also.
Right.
We know it is good, at the same time, how long can one do? Is it a good idea to do like that, or should we pause some time and let it be?
How much and for how long can we put pressure on people, kind of
Yes.
thing. Yeah. Every individual or every case has to be considered on its own merit, and if one, much depending on how serious a person takes the information that is given and the process that is recommended. We can only remind individuals, encourage individuals, and ultimately putting too much of pressure is, after a certain period of time, may be counterproductive, actually. So one has to judge according to, I would say, each individual case. By nature, devotees who are practicing and who would like to see others practice, who want to encourage others to practice, they they will remain very patient, understanding that for some individuals it may take a longer period. But definitely there is a danger in putting too much of pressure. Prabhupada established, for example, that if somebody wants to stay in our center, in our temples, our youth based programs, where there are some basic guidelines and basic regulations, if after a certain period of time some individuals cannot come to the mark, by continuously failing to either chant their rounds or failing to attend the morning programs, well, it means that they cannot continue having that privilege. It's a privilege to actually stay in the association of devotees. It's a privilege to actually stay in the temple. And only those who actually agree to follow the basic guidelines and basic rules that are there can or should be allowed to stay. And we remain, of course, it's like Krishna. We have chosen to be away from Krishna. We have chosen to reject Krishna, but still Krishna, as our eternal well-wisher, he's always ready to take us back or to make different arrangements for us to return to our natural and proper position as eternal servants. But Krishna himself allows that minute freedom, isn't it, to the living entity. And so if Krishna does that, then we have to, in the same kind of spirit, encourage, but then just as Krishna does not force the living entity to be Krishna conscious, we cannot force anyone also to be Krishna conscious. But regardless of one's, of an individual's fallen condition, or reluctance to take up seriously the process, we, as preachers, try to continue encouraging them, giving them prasadam in whatever different ways we can, and one day they may come around and become more serious, Yeah.
Just to continue, Guru Maharaj, this one. Like we have very less time as preachers or as aspiring preachers also. We have very less time in this world, and we come across so many kinds of devotees. Some serious, some non-serious, some surrender, some very little surrender.
Yeah.
And all. On one side, we have compassion for them that they have to come to the next level or to better level.
Right.
On the other side, we have very less time to be in the world, and even energy in the body also will be very less time for some years only. So then easy to good to discriminate that, okay, let us just go around, whoever are there serious ones, let us go around, go ahead with them, and then let others can be, Krishna will be taking care later, or somebody else, because we also have very less time. Is it a good idea to think like that?
Question is whether we should just concentrate on those who are serious and forget about the less serious one, kind of thing,
And what is the Vaishnava way of understanding it?
Vaishnava is compassionate to all living entities, and of course, in our respective situations, it's like, we only can accept people in our temples, or in our, it may not be a temple, it may be like different kind of programs that we have, outreach programs for people. Then naturally those who are more responsive, we will give our time and our attention to them, and always be open to help others as well. But again, it's on an individual basis. We definitely have to give more attention to, it's like in a temple situation, the temple president and others responsible, they especially concentrate on those people, isn't it? Of course, there are different activities to try and bring others, but the main focus is on cultivating persons who have committed themselves to join full-time devotees. So I would say that you cannot make a general a sweeping decision that we don't do anything for others who are maybe less serious, but we definitely need to give more time and more attention to those who are needing to be cultivated. and whatever time may be there for others. But ultimately, people have to make certain decisions and become more serious. Yes?
You mentioned that the nature of jiva is to seek happiness.
The nature of the jiva is to seek happiness. Yes.
And in that also we have to seek happiness, like material happiness to the transcendental happiness, which is the true happiness. And out in that we have to move from material happiness to transcendental happiness.
We have to, yes.
And then Maharaj also you mentioned that in the beginning when we are engaged in service of Krishna, then we don't get that satisfaction for consistently for a long period of time. So Maharaj, my question is that when we go through such kind of phase, when we are trying to serve Krishna or practice devotional service, but we don't get that taste, happiness or satisfaction, which we may name it, to motivate ourselves to carry on.
So the question is, in the beginning, because we're not able to constantly experience that happiness which we are seeking, how to motivate ourselves to keep going forward. Yes. By ourselves it is very difficult, and therefore seeking out the association of devotees will be very helpful. And practicing to be more patient and more perseverant is also something that all of us as devotees, as new devotees especially, need to develop. These are, Prabhupada explains how the very profound instructions that we find in the nectar of instruction are especially important for new devotees coming to Krishna consciousness. They clearly outline what activities to avoid and then what activities to take up, which will help us gradually experience actual satisfaction and happiness in devotional activities. So that is also nicely explained by Srila Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Devotion. These two books, Nectar of Instruction and the Nectar of Devotion, like they go hand in hand, and they're very important for explaining to devotees how they can carry out their activities of spiritual life. And this is we're talking about what is called sadhana bhakti, where Prabhupada would give the example, our acharyas give the example of someone who is sick, and the doctor will prescribe a particular diet and medicine. So even though we don't like to take it, it may be bitter medicine. Most medicines are bitter. So if we have faith in the physician or the doctor, then we, the more we follow the good instructions given, then gradually the desired result will actually take place. We should understand that what we are endeavoring to do as devotees is like it's the most challenging of all situations that one can be facing in the world. I mean, we're trying to cross over this otherwise unending cycle of birth and death. We're trying to break away from the modes of material nature. It's the most difficult thing. It's practically impossible. It is impossible by ourselves, you know. So therefore, also important for a devotee, whether he's a new devotee or an old devotee, all devotees, all of us, because as long as we are here in the material world, we need the mercy of Krishna. Without the mercy of the Lord, without the mercy of the Lord's devotees, we can so easily become lost. One devotee was explaining, someone had asked a question to Srila Prabhupada about what were some of his prayers to the Lord. I forget exactly the question. Prabhupada had replied after a few moments of silence, that I pray to the Lord that He always protect me so that I may not fall down. This is coming from a Paramahamsa. You know, if someone who is on the level of Srila Prabhupada can pray in this way, can express himself in that way, then, you know, what about us who are not on that level of Paramahamsa? So everyone in the material world needs to remind himself, we need to remind ourselves of our very, very dangerous, you know, and precarious situation in which we find ourselves. We are living here in the kingdom of Maya, and therefore, if we don't seriously take the necessary steps by being strict in our sadhana, by praying for the mercy of Krishna and his devotees, then we will struggle. We will continue to struggle, and we'll never come out of this entanglement in which we are in. In other words, just like the whole message here is telling that not one of our activities in the material world should be for the purpose of sense gratification. Everything that is the meaning of, you know, full and complete surrender means, you know, spiritual life is a serious business. It's the most important business, because it's what is awaiting us is a life of eternity, freed from all the miseries that the material world gives to everyone, freed from the modes of material nature, and freed as well from the threefold miseries of life. This is our lofty goal, you know, as devotees. It is like there's no higher goal in life. So naturally it's not easy, but it is not impossible. By yourselves it is impossible, but with the help of other devotees, with the help of instructions given by Krishna, with the special mercy that awaits anyone who actually takes the matter seriously, then it becomes possible. That example is given, that what, you know, crossing over this material world is compared to a vast ocean. That vast ocean, crossing over that vast ocean, for someone who actually takes up the process seriously, is just like stepping over the amount of water that is contained in the hoof print of a calf. A calf is very small, and his hoof print is even smaller. The amount of water in the hoof print of a calf is very little, isn't it? This is very big. It's like this, within one hand. And anybody can cross over that amount of water. You see, that is what awaits a devotee who actually ponders over his situation and hears attentively the message that is repeated on a daily basis. We simply have to, give, as Prabhupada would say, give oral reception. Take your ear and hear, give oral reception to what our acharyas are constantly trying to remind us. And so we have everything favorable that we need for actually succeeding. We just have to develop a stronger desire for actually attaining that goal. Not easy, we're in the material world, but not impossible because we have Krishna. We have the opportunity of simply remaining connected with Krishna and everything connected with Krishna. Then it becomes very much possible. Yeah. Now it's starting to get a little dark, I think. Jai Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Nitai Gaura Premanandi.
Bhakti Raghava Swami Maharaj ki
Jai.